Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to On The Brick, where boy, it's been a while since the last installment in this mini-series. Yeah, I didn't realize it's already been 6 months, but if some of you remember, about 6 and 7 months ago, I was showing off some custom LEGO spaceships that I had designed myself. There's no set reason for this or anything other than just wanting to and thinking that they look cool. Now I showed off this frigate and I also showed off a slightly larger destroyer, but I've also made several other ships in this series universe. I don't really know, like I said, I'm kind of just making them because I want to. However, when I was designing the vehicles, I realized that in the real world, it's all not just warships. While destroyers and frigates are very much a real thing, you're also just gonna find things like sailboats or yachts or research vehicles. So I wanted to try and recreate that aspect as well. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce you to the long-term research vehicle, the Pleiades. In a world where the inhabitants are able to go to other planets quickly, whether it's in their own solar system or not, they would probably want a way, and need a way, to study and research various different planets for various different reasons, especially over a long period of time. And that is where a ship like the Pleiades comes in. See, this is meant to be a long-term, purely orbital vehicle. This does not go into atmosphere. Well, not entirely at least, but I'll get to that in just 1 second. The inhabitants of the Pleiades are meant to just stay on the ship, being able to completely sustain themselves for several years at a time. This includes areas like a biodome here, which is diverse enough to hold different plants and full gardens to help feed the people of this ship. Now, while this is a large vehicle, most of it is dedicated to the various aspects needed for research and whatnot, leaving what is essentially only this strip here to be the crew quarters. Now this has all of the housing for the crews, including things like the kitchen, the mess hall, recreational areas. All of that is held in just this area here. And then obviously above that you have 4 large silos which are multi-purposed. These could either hold food, things like oxygen, water, or maybe they're used to try out different experiments using different gases, seeing how they would work on foods, plants, or anything that you might need when being introduced to a very brand new environment for the first time. Keep in mind, colonizing a new planet is going to be one of the hardest things that we ever do, if we ever even get around to that. And a whole lot of research needs to go into it before we ever even establish something like a permanent colony. But something like the Pleiades isn't just meant for that as well. But most of the scientific aspect of the Pleiades is more for planets that are uninhabitable for one reason or another. The long-term goal of the Pleiades is to figure out if these types of planets could one day become habitable. For instance, something like Mars, where a long-term human presence would take a lot of time to be able to fully establish for a variety of different reasons. Now, part of the reason that this is solely meant to be in a vacuum and never can go into an atmosphere or land on a planet is because the underside is just not meant for that. There's a lot of scientific equipment and gizmos down here. You can use your imagination to pretend what you want each of these to be. For me, these blue things personally I think hold the water or various gases needed, but I see them more as the emergency supply than the full supply. I just found these pieces when I was building the ship and I thought it would be really cool to include. Also, they're super rare, so if I ever build this in real life, probably won't include them. However, let's say that they come across a planet in which they can establish some sort of a presence, and that's why the side of this vehicle is just like a cloned section 3 times over, because each one of these sections can, both in real life in like the LEGO version and in the fake universe that this exists, come off. They are fully meant to be able to detach from the vehicle and land safely on the planets below, becoming a pseudo-permanent base. So each of these sections does have some sort of living facility, kitchen, stuff like that. They're just not really meant to be used while the vehicle is in space. And I like to think that typically the occupants of the Pleiades don't really use them in those times anyways, as they're really just not as nice as the actual ones in the living quarters. Now, a lot of the design of this is really just greebling that I think would look cool, but there are certain things that I added with certain functions in mind. For instance, these dome pieces at the front here are meant to act sort of as either supply drops for people on a planet or like probe releases if they're trying to just figure out, say, like what an atmosphere is made of or something like that. There's also this secondary clear dome on one of the sides here, which is really just meant to act as a recreational area. I like to think that there's a nice big tree in there, and at night occupants can go and see the stars. I suppose they could go at any point of the day, but when I say night, I just mean like when they're not directly facing the sun. The back of the vehicle has another clear dome that is overlooking the engines, and this is meant to act more like an airlock than anything else here, just in case anything goes wrong with the engines or there's any like repairs or anything that needs to happen on the vehicle. Whoever needs to do that, or I like to think that there's like mini robots that can do that, can exit through here quite easily without having to disturb or affect anything else on the vehicle. There's also 8 different spots in which a multi-person shuttle can land. There are 4 at the, well, supposed front of the vehicle, and then 2 on either side of the living quarters. Sorry, I could not remember that word for a second. Now, returning to the rear of the vehicle, it does have one rather large engine and 2 smaller ones, and that's again a very intentional thing. This is not meant to be like a super fast vehicle by any means. Now, while it did need a powerful engine because of its size, it didn't need multiple or anything. So even though this is a really big vehicle, or at least like a decently big vehicle, that's why it only has one main engine. And lastly, for comparison's sake, I also wanted to show you it lined up to both the original frigate in front of it and the destroyer behind it. So technically the destroyer is bigger, but it's also a destroyer, so yeah. But you can see that it easily dwarfs the frigate, which by the way is a good bit closer to the camera, and is pretty much equal size to the destroyer. But this easily has to be one of the more unique looking vehicles that I've ever made. Since I went in knowing that it didn't have to go into an atmosphere, I didn't have to make it symmetrical or really look good. It's a research/colony ship. It's not going to look beautiful. But I will say that it did give me an idea for a much larger ship that I want to work on eventually, but that one might take a little bit of time, and part of the reason for that is that alongside some smaller, faster frigates that I've also designed, I just finished designing a full-on carrier that I would also love to show off to you guys. So if you want to see that, make sure you hit the like button and make sure you subscribe to know when those videos could come out. If there are any other types of space vehicles you would like to see me try my hand at, let me know in the comments down below. And remember that today is the last day to sign up for the Hauser giveaway, which I probably put a link to earlier in this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Please consider checking me out on Instagram, Discord, and of course on Patreon, where you can join all of these wonderful people, get extra entries into those giveaways, and also get shoutouts and extra content on my Patreon. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.